Tell us a little bit about your transition. You started off in finance and you've been in the racetrack business since it seems like 1991.
So when I was an undergraduate at Berkeley, 18, 19 years old, didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, so I started taking business classes. And after I graduated, after 4 years, all the offers came from accounting firms like Ernst & Young and Arthur Andersen and such. So I ended up working in San Francisco doing that. It was a nice job. It was a lot of fun, but I knew I didn't want to be an accountant necessarily. So the only way to really switch gears for me was to go back and get my MBA at UCLA. When I was there, I was actually inspired by one of their brown bag seminars, something not that dissimilar from this. We had a guest speaker who made the point that if possible, if you can marry your hobby with your job, you'll be happier, you'll work harder, and maybe be more successful. Well, I was a huge sports fan ever since I was a kid, and therefore tried to get into sports marketing. Getting a job with the Lakers or the Dodgers or what have you is a very difficult undertaking. But I was a horse racing fan as a kid, and I knew the game, and I was able to get an internship at Santa Anita Racetrack in Los Angeles. Got an internship there. The thing about horse racing is there's a lot of marketing to do, but because of the betting, there's a ton of numbers. So there's a big quantitative side. Because I was a CPA before, that fit me, so I just fell in love with the racing industry and all the numbers and all the analysis. So I've been in it, 29 years ago. I'm happy to say I'm probably the oldest guy in the building today.
that might be. But so that's great. So you feel like you've gotten to the point where you married kind of your passion with your skill set, and you're really loving doing the racetrack.
Absolutely. And when I was at Santa Anita for those 10 years, I had my eye on Del Mar. Del Mar is a completely different animal. We run during the summer. We run for only 7 weeks, other than now the new fall meet. And it's just kind of a young, youthful, cool environment. I always said to myself, if I ever get a shot to go to Del Mar and live in San Diego, I'm going to take it. And we might talk about the rebranding, but I always said, and if I get there, I'm going to do everything completely different. We're going to throw the playbook out the window. We're going to try to market younger. We're going to try to market more to women. And the opportunity came in 2001, and I came down here. And as most of you know who aren't from San Diego, once you live here, it's hard to leave. So here I am.
You're right. So I know we're going to talk a little bit about the present, the rebranding, but before we talk about today, take us a little bit back into the history of the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, like where it's come from. It's so popular. It's such a big part of the San Diego community, and that's why we're so excited to have you here. So what does it mean to the community, and a little bit more about its history would be great.
So from a history standpoint, Del Mar Racetrack was founded by Bing Crosby. Now, does anybody here know who Bing Crosby is? All right, good. He was a movie star, singer. Back in the day, in the 30s, he was really the man. And he lived up in L.A. and Hollywood, obviously, and he and his Hollywood buddies started the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club and started horse racing here in 1937. Back in the day, the 5 didn't really exist, so they really relied on the train to get people here from L.A., and he used to bring all his movie star friends, Desi and Lucy, Jimmy Durante, Red Skelton, you name it, all the big stars came down here. So people would come to Del Mar to see and rub shoulders with the movie stars. Sometimes they would hold up the races until the train from LA arrived. In 1937, I think the opening day, they had about 14,000 people come. It was a big deal for them then. And Del Mar was born. But Del Mar really didn't get put on the map until 2 years later when the famous horse Seabiscuit decided to come and race at Del Mar. Bing was a marketing genius. What he did, if you remember the movie Seabiscuit, the character played by Jeff Bridges was Charles Howard, the owner. Bing put him on his board of directors. And then he said, hey, now that you're on the board, why don't you bring your superstar horse who was on the cover of Time magazine and everything else, why don't you bring him to Del Mar? He convinced him to do it. And when Seabiscuit ran at Del Mar, Bing was able to get it broadcast live on NBC Radio because he had connections, obviously. And Del Mar was really born as a racetrack.
Wow. What year was that?
That was 37 is when they opened, and 39 is when Seabiscuit ran at Del Mar. So fast forward to today. I've got some stats here for you. Since 1970, when the company I work for, the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club, we operate Del Mar. A lot of people don't realize this. We're a non-for-profit. Every dime we make, we give back to the fairgrounds in form of a rent payment. So we are just a management team. We have no assets. So everything we do, we put back into the to the facility. So it allows us to make decisions that are a little different than a for-profit. We can do things that are the right decision, not necessarily the bottom line decision. We have no shareholders to worry about. So since 1970, we've paid approximately $890 million to the state agencies, municipalities. The big numbers are $433 million to the state of California and $345 million to the fairgrounds itself. Wow. So that's a history. We, believe it or not, we have 5,100 people who work during the races at the racetrack. And our economic impact number is about $100 million to San Diego County every summer.
Tell us a little bit about the season, because you guys have two, it sounds like you've extended it towards the fall. There's 2 moments in time throughout the year where you guys are having these races. What happens in the racetrack for the rest of the year? What are you guys hosting there?
So the rest of the year, it's just a fairgrounds. The fair just closed. It was there for a month, and we don't run it at all. My group only takes care of the horse racing. The fairgrounds has their own staff that puts on the fair. Every other weekend, you guys probably hear there's a hot rod show or a cat show or a dog show. It's a typical fairgrounds that puts on events every year. So we typically write a check to the fairgrounds for just about $11 million a year as our rent payment, our profits. And the fairground breaks even pretty much the rest of the year. They put on a fair that makes some money, but to retain the staff the rest of the year, it costs some money, and they lose money the rest of the year. So they about break even, and their profits are generally whatever our check to them is. And they use that money to fix up the fairgrounds, do whatever is in the best use of the community.
And I heard you guys have added the concert series on Friday, which I believe was one of your initiatives. Is that an initiative to really bring in those younger audiences that you were mentioning? Or talk us a little bit about the rebranding and what you guys are hoping to accomplish.
So when I got here in 2001, Del Mar was doing fairly well. It was one of the better racetracks in the world, but it was primarily for older men. That was the demographic that goes to horse racing. And my boss, Joe Harper, gave me a lot of rope. I said, look, if we want to try to improve this, we need to shake it up. We need to go younger. We need to go target more females. So we threw out the door all the traditional racetrack marketing that is basically to older men. And we started doing concerts and food festivals and, started promoting ourselves in cool places. And we came up with the tagline, cool as ever, which is really a tip of the hat to Bing back in the day and to say we're cool now. And we really turned things around quite a bit. Attendance was up about 25% over the first 10 years. Our revenues were up. Instead of being a business that relied solely on the revenues from wagering, we became a business that made most of our money from food and beverage. Because the concerts, people came and they ate and they drank. The Del Margarita sales went through the roof. Sponsorships went through the roof because of concerts and because of all the booze we were pouring, to be honest with you. So that's what we tend to be today as well. I do market to our hardcore bettors somewhat. That's our bread and butter. But I'm able to do that through social media techniques and database marketing techniques. All of our over-the-air ads that you guys will see on TV, radio, print, digital, outdoor, that's all targeting kind of the beautiful people of San Diego, if you will, to go out and do things. And I don't know whether this strategy would work in other markets, but in San Diego, when it's so youthful and everybody's in good shape and everybody wants to see and be seen and wear fancy hats and dress up, it really plays right into our hands, and that's part of why we took on this strategy.
Yeah, there's a huge culture around it, for sure. I've been in, and people are all decked out in their gear. Tell me a little bit about who goes. What's your breakout between visitors and maybe some locals and really getting those returning customers? Or are you guys thinking about a different strategy for each of them?
So I really only advertise primarily in San Diego County, so I'm going after locals, but there's no doubt that we get a ton of people from Arizona, from Vegas, from the places that are really hot in the summer, as well as Northern California, LA, Orange County. We really rely on PR for that, the travel magazines, et cetera, et cetera. We are about 68% North County, San Diego. I should say San Diego County in general, and then about 10% from LA and such. So we do get some out-of-towners, but I primarily market in San Diego County.
Obviously, next week is a very, very big week for you guys. Tell us a little bit about what goes into planning for this week, whether it's your specific role and initiatives or your larger team and how everyone's working together to put on this big show and opening week.
So the toughest thing is that the fair was here on July 4th. And if any of you have ever been to the San Diego County Fair, it is all-encompassing. They take over every square inch of the fairgrounds. There's Ferris wheels, there's rides everywhere, there's horrible food everywhere. So we have the challenge of turning it from a fair into a racetrack in 13 days, which is quite an undertaking. We always make it every year, but it's always a stressful time, not necessarily for me, but for our operations and plant guys. So as you can imagine, the place is a mess. There's grease everywhere. We have to basically power wash the entire facility. We have to get the racetrack into pristine condition. there's a major stage. The main stage for the fair goes right on the racetrack. So we got to get that off. We got to get the racetrack ready. We got to get all the stables ready because we have almost 2,000 horses that live at Del Mar for the 2 months we're open in the summer. So we have to get all that ready. So it's quite an undertaking, but we do it every year. And I don't want to say it's routine, but we know we can pull it off.
So there's 2,000 horses that live there. Does your horse live there? Tell us a little bit about, because you're obviously working in the business, but you yourself are a horse race owner. So would love to also hear your perspective as on the other side and how you perceive kind of Del Mar and the entire racing business being a horse race owner.
So owning a racehorse is, first of all, very much a losing proposition. The ROI is way, way low. Occasionally, if you have a great Kentucky Derby winner or something and you have stud rights, then you can make money. But in general, it's worse than owning a boat. You just lose your ass no matter what you do in horse racing. But it's also a very expensive undertaking. If you're not going to put up a couple $100,000, you really have no business being in the game. So what I do is I get 20 friends and local people that I know, new friends, whatever, and we all put up $20,000, which is a little more manageable. So we have $400,000 to work with, and what that's called is a syndicate. We're a group of people, and I run it for everybody, and everybody is really only interested in running at Del Mar. So we don't start to accumulate our horses till about May, and right now we have 10. And we run our horses at Del Mar. We have a great time. And at the end of the meet, we sell them all. And whatever money we have left, it's always less than we started, we give back. So people generally get about half their money back, maybe 3/4 if we have a good year. So it's a lot of fun. And it teaches people about horse ownership. And they don't have to, without putting up six figures.
So you sell them every year and then rebuy them every year?
Absolutely right. Different horses every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Is there a name that you want to share with us? What do we look out for and maybe bet on?
Yeah. So we bought a horse just recently with the old NBA and college coach, Rick Pitino. We bought in partnership. And he's a 2-year-old, meaning that he'll have a chance to run in the Kentucky Derby next year. In the Derby, you have to be 3. He's a baby. He's never run before. And we let Coach Pitino name the horse, and he named him Defense Wins. So that's a name to be ready for. And he's going to be running on opening Sunday, the 21st of July. And he's supposed to be really good, but you never know, right? It's only based on his training in the morning. But our trainer has very high hopes for him. And if he wins on opening Sunday, then he will go into the big stake race at Del Mar on closing day. And if we do well there, well, then the Kentucky Derby really might be within reach.
Have any of your 10 horses ever won big?
Not big. No, these 10 have never won much big. They're pretty much run-of-the-mill horses, except potentially for defense wins. We'll see.
So another thing that I know has been making headlines, and you've worked previously at another racetrack as well, but a little bit more around safety for the horse races and the horses in general. Tell us a little about, I know you guys have taken that very seriously, and you have a ton of initiatives that you've done before even getting started for opening week. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on at the Mar Thoroughbred Club.
So as you guys probably read in the paper, the racetrack Santa Anita Park, the track I used to work at 20 years ago up in Los Angeles, has had a really bad run with horse injuries. And from a physiological standpoint, the problem with horses is when they get an injury that would be fairly routine for a human, a broken bone or serious tendon injury or what have you, they can't heal. They can't just lay in bed with their leg up. So the only humane thing to do to avoid them having excruciating pain forever and maybe never healing is to euthanize them. It's just the way that the horses are made. So unfortunately, Santa Anita had 21 inches of rain this year in a short period of time. Their track got messed up, and they had to put down a lot of horses, way too many. So the headlines were bad. The protesters were bad. They mismanaged a number of things, and it's really put a big scar on racing in general. And now, of course, everybody's looking at us. So our story, thank God, coming into the meet is that 2 years ago, after the 2016 season, we put into place a number of protocols to try to cut down on injuries. And, again, because we're non-for-profit, we can spend the extra dollar and do what's right for the horses because we don't have to worry about shareholders. So we did a few things. The first thing we did was we took an extra week between the end of the fair and the beginning of the racing meet so we could make sure the track is in perfect condition. That cost us about $1 million in revenue, but it was money well spent. We also dug the track up and made sure it was state-of-the-art from a safety standpoint and spent another $1.5 million doing that. We also brought in more veterinarians, so every horse that runs in a race now gets inspected by a veterinarian 4 times. They see him in the morning, they see him when they come over for the race, they see him in the paddock when they're getting saddled, and they see him right before they go into the gate. And we've instructed the state veterinarians, if you see anything that you don't like, you scratch that horse, he's not running. We also changed some of our workout procedures. We brought in from the University of Kentucky the leader in analyzing racetrack surfaces and making sure they're right. We did all these things, and I'm happy to report that over the last 2 years, we have dropped the number of injuries, catastrophic injuries, by 70%. So now we are ranked as one of the very top safest tracks in the country. So we've got a great record right now. So as you can imagine, with all this news, I've been making the rounds with the media. Pretty much every morning I'm on one of the shows basically saying, we are not them. Please don't judge us by them. And we're going to not stop with our safety protocols and pushing it forward until we get as close to zero as we can. So we've done a bunch of new things this year. As I mentioned, we have about 2,000 horses that live at Del Mar, and the vast majority of them go out on the track to exercise every day. Well, I don't care if you have 2,000 horses in the wild. Things are going to happen. There's that many horses, and when they're that fragile, when they can't heal from injuries, things happen. So we have now put two veterinarians, starting this year, two veterinarians out on the racetrack in the morning to make sure that if they see a horse on the track, they don't like the way he's moving, they pull him off immediately. We've also put together a 5-member panel of veterinarians that look on paper at every horse who's running that day, and if they think, hey, this horse hasn't raced for a couple years or he hasn't trained that well, they scratch him. So we're not taking any chances. We've also implemented out-of-competition testing. The drug testing rules for horses are very, very strict, but we only test on race day traditionally. Now we're doing out-of-competition testing. And what we're really testing for is butamine is a drug that horses sometimes take in training, and it's like taking an Advil, but we don't want horses, if a horse has an injury, we want them to feel it so they can show us that they're not right. We don't want to mask anything because that's when things go bad. So we now have out-of-competition testing. We're doing everything we can. And let me tell you, the culture of training and horse racing is changing to be all about safety, because if it doesn't, horse racing won't make it. I mean, it's just not okay to have horses die like the numbers they did at Santa Anita. So again, we're not them. We're doing everything we can to make the situation better, and I think probably you could argue this Santa Anita situation causing these changes in the long run is probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's brought a ton of awareness to the issue. You said there's 2,000 horses. Like how many trainers on the floor with those two veterinarians on a daily basis?
We've got about a couple hundred trainers at Del Mar, and they're all different, and everybody wants to come to Del Mar, but that 2,000 those 2,000 stalls are in demand. We'll probably get 3,000 applications. So we have to go through and say, yeah, your horses really aren't very good, or these guys haven't worked, so we'll tell you how many you can have. You get 10, you get 20, you get 30, because you have to submit which horses you want to bring in, and we know which ones are apt to run, we know which ones look healthier, and we only want the best horses.
So just going a little bit farther away from the racetrack specifically, but the prospect of sports betting in California is changing a ton. Any insight into what's happening? What can we expect in the next couple of years, or any insight that you have given your background in this industry?
Sure. So as most of you probably know, the federal government ruled a couple of years ago that sports betting on football, baseball, whatever it is legal from a federal perspective. They left it up to each state as to which states wanted to participate in it. So right now, I think there are 11 states legal for sports betting. The two leaders in the industry are Nevada, obviously, and New Jersey. Actually, last month, for the first time ever, New Jersey took in more sports bets than Nevada, which was pretty amazing. Depending on who you listen to, it sounds like there'll be about 20 states legal by next year, and then by 2021, maybe 30 to 35. The earliest California will get its act together would be 2021, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed to 2022. A number of things have to happen. First of all, it has to pass a vote, and before the vote can happen, the legislator needs to figure out who's going to hold the licenses, who's going to be running it. The group that holds all the cards in Sacramento are the Indians. They have all the Indian casinos, and they pay the most money through their lobbyists to various political organizations in Sacramento, so the Indians are driving the bus. We as the racetracks are just hoping that we get a seat at the table. If it goes our way, the only place you'll be able to bet will be at Indian casinos and at racetracks, but believe me, there'll be a lot of other people clamoring for licenses to take sports bets, so how it works out is really anybody's guess. So that's all going to be, that jockeying around is going to happen in the next year. It'll probably go on the ballot in 20. And if everything goes perfectly, you'll be able to bet on the Chargers on a Sunday in 2021, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's 2022.
So I know we talked about safety and a lot of the changes there without divulging any of your personal secrets of what you want for 2020 for the DMTC, but any other changes that you're looking to make or dreams that you have for what you guys might undertake in the next year?
You know, it's really all about safety, and it's funny. My job 10 years ago, my biggest problem was worrying about the kids smoking weed at the reggae concert. I long for those days. Now it is all about safety. And I mean, my job has really turned into a crisis management job. It's okay. But like I said, if the culture of horse racing doesn't change, and thank God it is changing, and thank God we are now one of the safest tracks in the country, it's not going to make it. So we are safety, 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 but at the same time, the rebranding of trying to get a younger, more female audience to Del Mar has really paid off for us, and we're going to continue to push there. So the other thing that's really good for us is the Breeders' Cup, which is the World Championships of Horse Racing, came to Del Mar in 2017 for the first time. Huge economic impact for San Diego. We were just honored recently. They announced they're coming back in 2021. And we hope to get on their short list. It's like the Super Bowl. It travels from market to market. We're hoping that we'll host the Breeders' Cup every 3 years. So that's a big goal of ours as well.
So you've been there for a while. What's the best thing about working at the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club?
I would say the people watching. For those of you who have ever been there on opening day, it's an unbelievable array of people. From the fancy of the fancy to the most outrageous. Everybody's having a great time. I'm probably the only sober guy in the entire house, but that's okay. Someone's got to be. And it's just it's a very fun place.
You're doing a lot of interviews at those days, right?
Yeah, doing interviews all day long. That's my job. And it's just a really fun place to work. We don't have free lunch like Google does, but other than that, it's a very fun place to work.
And how many visitors are you expecting, at least for the opening week?
For opening day, we generally get about 35,000. And then during the week, we run Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesdays and Thursdays are slower, around 10,000. Fridays we have concerts and we have a late start at 4 o'clock, so we generally get about 15,000. And on the weekends, Saturdays 25 to 30,000, and Sundays are about 15 to 20.
I know you've been doing crazy amounts of interviews. Is there anything we might have missed that we didn't really get to cover just yet?
No, but I'm really happy we got to touch on the safety aspects. And if anybody has any questions, we've got nothing to hide. That's one thing I tell all the TV stations. We want you to look behind the curtain. We want you to come out in the mornings and see how trainers treat their horses, see how veterinarians treat their horses, because they are really treated like rock stars with the best care, the best food, the best everything.
Tell us a little bit about getting your own personal racehorses ready. Like, what does that look like? Are you with them consistently? Your trainers are?
So horses only race about once a month. They train every day. They go out to the racetrack and train. They'll have a serious fast training exercise about once a week. So what's important about owning a racehorse is you got to figure out which race fits this horse, because horses are in different classes, different types of surfaces. Some like dirt, some like grass, some go long, some go short, some are better than others. So you got to pick your spot where you fit. And then you got to keep them fit, and you've got to feed them and care for them well. Got to keep them healthy. So it's a big undertaking. When you only run once a month, a race is a pretty big deal.
And does your family go to every single race, or?
No, they're kind of into it, but they're a little bit over it. But they come out occasionally.
Okay. Any other questions from the group? Okay, we got one here.
I'll just yell it.
Yeah.
So names for horse races it seems like one of those things that you don't see in any other sport. It seems very unique. Do you have an all-time favorite horse name that you've seen over the years?
All-time favorite horse name, since they put so much thought into it.
So the way the horse naming works is there is a group called the Jockey Club. And if you come up with a name for your horse, and usually the names are a blend of your mom and your dad's name, but not always. And you have to apply for the name to the Jockey Club, and the Jockey Club approves it. So if you say something lewd or something, they'll say no. I thought the most creative name that got through the Jockey Club was Hoof, like in a hoof, Hoof-Hearted. So when the announcer read the name, you can see how that came out, and the Jockey Club was like, how did we let that one get through?
Thank you so much, Craig, for coming, and best of luck next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you.